Hello, everybody. Welcome to 2025 and the first webinar from Annika Digital. It's myself and Stanley. I'm your host today, and I'm with Tony, who's my co-host. Morning, Tony. And I'm very pleased to welcome Caroline Spence. Caroline, it's a bit scary, Caroline, how long we've known each other now, but it's well over 25 years because we knew each other before the millennium. But Caroline is a senior lecturer at De Montfort University, but she has actually worked with Annika before, and she's going to do an amazing presentation on being your own business coach. So we'll pass over to Caroline in just a minute. A few housekeeping things from me, and then we'll go over to the polls with Tony. So welcome everybody to the first webinar. And if you are new to Annika webinars, we run these every Friday morning at 9 to 10. They are being recorded, and we basically start off with a little poll just to get a few more people to join us, because there's always a few people that join just after 9 o'clock. We will send the video round later on today. And the first bit of housekeeping is if you go top right of your screen, you can see there's a handouts button where you can go and get the slides. So go and help yourself to the slides now. You'll also notice top right of the slides, there's two little arrows with full. If you, once we start, Caroline starts talking, we'll turn our cameras off to give you the full screen. But if you hit that button, you'll be able to see more details as the screen will be full size. So that's enough for me now. So I'm going to pass over to Tony, who's going to do the polls and going to ask you all about what you're up to in the world of planning.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much, Anne. And Happy New Year to everyone. I'm excited to be back for the Friday webinars that we normally have. On today's first poll, I'm going to go ahead to share it, and everyone should be able to see it on the screen. The question is, what stage are you what stage of your career are you at? Whether you're a student, an apprentice, in education or in training, you're in your early career between the first 5 years, you're in your media career, and you're happy with your choice, or you're looking to pivot. And if you're established, if you have an established career, or you're also looking to pivot, or you're planning for retirement, or you're a business owner and other, just to get a better understanding of where everyone is in terms of the career.
Yeah, and in terms of looking to pivot, what I mean is, are you considering changing career? Are you not happy where you are and you're looking to change?
So we have an interesting split today. So just a few people are in their early career, so just about 8%. And then we mostly have business owners on the call today, and also established career professionals, and they're happy with their career choice. Yeah.
I guess the reason we've got so many business owners is because we also run, in addition to the webinars being for general consumption, we're also running the skills boot camps, and quite a lot of the people that attend the skills boot camps are self-employed and business owners. So they're quite likely to attend this, because I would think they see this as a really good way of planning for their own businesses. So that's probably why that number's very high. So that might explain that. But the other one that's really high is established career and happy with their career choice. That's very high as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's still 11% mid-career looking to pivot and established career looking to pivot. So that's 22% of people who are looking to change, who have already started something. So that's interesting as well, that there are people who are.
But isn't that normal? Isn't it quarter of the people or 50% of people are looking to move job at any one time anyway?
But that's just not move job. That's move career.
Even more.
Yeah, that's move to something new. So so that's really interesting in itself, actually.
Okay, so I'll take the second poll. And
I mean, there's so many new opportunities. Obviously, people are still getting into digital marketing, but with all the AI stuff that's coming out, I mean, I'm looking to pivot, which is ridiculous at my age. You know, I should be thinking about having retirement and going in and chilling out in Cornwall. But actually, I'm just about to start a new 6 months course on AI and automation, because I'm really excited about the opportunities to do something completely different. So I think if you are serious about your long-term career, you know, you can change lots of times.
Yeah, and I think it's not the same as it was, you know, when, you know, people had a job for life. Now it's about constant learning and constant change. And I think you have to be open to that and also know when that's right. So if something's not working for you, how do you know when to change? You know, I think it's really quite important. You know, you need to stick with things and have kind of resilience and sort of persistence, but also, you know, there's the trend about sort of fail fast, you know, at the moment, in terms of, right, if something's really not working, when do you let that go?
Yeah, absolutely. Tony, could you also read the answers out? Because on the video, I don't think it always shows the quiz.
So the question is, what do you want to get out of today's session? So it's either to set your career goals for the year, which we have about 18% of people now. Get some external guidance on your career direction. Nobody picked that. Establish some career priorities for 2025. We have about 16% of people that chose that. And then we have to set measurable actions. We have about 32 people, or 35% of people that have chosen that, which is interesting. And then another 20% said, learn how to evaluate yourself and own your career. And 15% of people said others, which is interesting.
It'd be interesting to if they write it in the chat, and if they're prepared to share what their other is.
Yeah, but interesting that, you know, vast majority here are looking at set measurable actions, which I think is key, because I think sometimes these, you know, if you do any kind of coaching session, it can be a little bit, with the best will in the world, well-intentioned, but not particularly practical. And I think having, you know, a timetable and, you know, costed actions and all that kind of stuff out the back of this, I think is really, really important.
Yeah. Okay.
Excellent. So if we get rid of this, we'll be able to save slides. So Tony and myself will turn off our cameras. You can keep your video on if you want, Caroline, or you can turn yours off. It's up to you. Yeah, sorry, Kelly. There's a different button. I don't think we clicked the right button when we set the poll up. So you've got to choose a multi-choice button. So apologies, Kelly, for that. Excellent. All right, then over to you, Caroline. We'll be lurking in the background.
Okay, I'll keep my camera on. I always find it's nicer to have a little face there. But anyway, welcome one and all. So happy Christmas, and you know, let's hope 2025 is a good new year for all of us. I chose this topic when Annette said, do you want to come and do a presentation? I was like, oh, I'd love to. I chose this topic because I thought it's really relevant for this time of year. A, because it tends to be a bit of a quieter business day. So for those of us who are working, or those of us who are probably working from home, and I imagine that's quite a few of us today, you've probably got a little bit more headspace. The emails are going to be a bit quieter. And I think you can do a little bit of thinking, a little bit of planning for the year ahead. So I wanted to do this particular topic today. So who am I? So Anne already introduced me, but I'm Caroline Spence. I'm a former director of Annika Digital. So I worked with Anne for, was it 6 or 7 years? I think I was one of the board directors at Annika, and my background is public relations and communications, so kind of earned media, those sorts of things. And that's the sort of thing that I've moved on actually to teach at the university. I am a senior lecturer, as Anne said, but I'm also a program leader. So they've given me my own degree program to run, which is advertising and marketing communications. I'm also a qualified strengths coach, and I use that to help other members of the university team, so other staff members, but also students. And I do a lot of work with the students in helping them determine their career direction and what they want to do, based on the things that they know that they're good at. So they're people who are sort of very earlier on in their journey. But you can see I've put a little certificate up there to show you that, yes, I am actually a qualified strengths coach, and I can do this. So what are we going to be looking at today? So first of all is why be your own business coach? I think there's a lot of, particularly if you go on LinkedIn, there's a lot of people purporting to be coaches, and I think that there's a lot of kind of noise around that, and it's how you sift through it. Secondly, preparation. So how would you go about preparing a session if you're looking at planning, you're looking at yourself, your own business, how you're going to do this for the year ahead, what do you need to do in advance for that. Thirdly, we'll be looking at some techniques, and that's really, I think, up to you and where you are, but I'll run through just like 2 or 3 of the sort of main techniques which are available out there. And then number 4, we're actually I'll work through some practical examples and show you how to get from the data that you've got using the techniques and then getting some kind of actionable insights out of that at the end. And then we can take any questions that people have got. Is that all right with everybody? Is that clear?
Yeah, that's great, Caroline. Thank you.
Brilliant. Yeah. Wonderful. Okay, so we've already asked these questions, so I can click through these quite quickly. So we already know what people want to get out of this and what stage of career people are at. So, and thank you for the interaction, Rachel and Kelly. That's always wonderful to see. So why be your own business coach? So kind of like, how difficult can it be? And apologies to whoever this random is that I have, I've put a little disclaimer at the bottom. This guy might be completely legit, but there's loads of people like it on the internet who are like, yes, I can get you your growth, or I can, if you pay me money, you can download, all my, in my ebooks, etc., and I'll teach you how to be a coach and all those sorts of things. And it always feels to me like, oh, can I trust any of these people? Are they legitimate? Are they credible? And actually, I think the person who's in the best position to evaluate where you are at the moment is you. And sometimes we could just do with a little bit of help with this. And that's what I'm hoping to do today. So the importance of reflection, and you can see here that I've put the little smorgasbord at the top here. This is about being able to have the ability to know what to do, and also to be able to pick and choose some techniques for yourself, so that you can actually do some reflection. And I think reflection is really important, and something perhaps that we don't get to do enough of day to day. I think we're always so busy doing the do and working through huge to-do lists. I'm a big believer in lists, so I've always got lots of lists going around. But in education, we believe that reflection is actually the final part of the journey, the learning, any kind of learning journey. So, you can do something, you can evaluate how successful it's been, and then there should always be a self-reflection piece that then takes you back on to, okay, I'm going to go through the next stage of planning. So perhaps today, when it's a bit quieter, is a really good chance to do that self-reflection. So you can coach yourself for free. And as I say, it's just about using a mix of these, established frameworks and techniques, so that you know what you're doing better than anybody. And yes, you can have input from other people, but actually, I think spending some time doing this is really important. And I found it very helpful for myself as well. It can help with planning your next career stage or business goals. And I think that's really important. As Anne said, it doesn't matter what stage of your career or business that you're at, you always need to be looking to the future, because nothing stays the same anymore. And it's about, okay, well, where were you personally? And I think people's personal lives do come into that a lot more than ever they used to. And when do you need to think about perhaps a change? Are there things you would like to improve? And it could be as simple as, actually, I want to earn more money next year. How would I go about getting a pay rise? Or how would I go about getting a promotion? Or how would I go about, getting my business to earn more money? Yeah. So Jeremy said, so absolutely make time and plan to reflect. Guilty, my end of getting too stuck in, and also the team then getting into the next project too quickly. Yeah, there does need to be some reflection, Jeremy, I agree. And how on earth do you take on board the learnings, I think, if you're not doing that reflection piece? Reflecting and then thinking about what you can learn, I think, is really important. And then reflection builds into planning. So what do I want to do more of, and where do I want to go? And I think it's really important about what do you want to do more of. In the strengths coaching that I do, it's a lot about energy and sort of we've all got things that we enjoy doing in our jobs, and then we've all got things that we enjoy doing less in our jobs. So probably admin, we're probably not so keen on, but you might be more keen on maybe the creative bits of what you're doing, or you might really get a buzz out of sales. And, there'll be things that really energize you, and there'll be things that de-energize you. So it's about how can you make sure that your job, you're concentrating on those things that you're really good at, and that also give you energy and give you that enjoyment. Whereas I think, you can get stuck. And a lot of people do this. They procrastinate about the things that they don't like doing. They put them off and they put them into a little corner, and then they keep they dwell on them, and they start to occupy more and more of your job and your mental time, because you're not sort of getting stuck in and either getting rid of them, so delegating them, or getting through them in a timely manner. So I think quite a few people are guilty of that. So how do you get to do more of what you want to do more of, and then also looking at where you want to go in terms of goals? Actionable insights then, yes, definitely. And as we saw from the poll, a lot of you really want to get that today, and I hope to be able to provide techniques for you to get to that point. It's really important to be able to think about broader goals and, I'd love to do this and I'd love to do that. Fine. Okay. Well, that's great. And as I said, a lot of coaching can be incredibly well-intentioned, but sometimes not particularly practical. And I always think, well, okay, if you're looking at the big picture, then it needs to break down into some kind of, actionable plan, which is costed and has a time scale against it. And that enables you to hold yourself accountable. So, okay, well, if you met this, goal that you've set yourself by the end of March, so, it really gives you that timetable to be able to work through. And for those of you who are employed, and I saw from the poll there are quite a few of you, you can work in tandem with your formal review or appraisal process as well. And I think that's quite important, because you can fold what you've discovered. You can talk about that with your line manager, and if you've got some kind of personal development plan, you can work within that same structure, and you can build it in, and I think that can be really helpful. Okay, so that was why. Now we're going to look at preparation. So what are the sorts of things that are you going to need to do to enable you to do this? So first of all, it's about making time for yourself. As I said, this is the perfect time of year for planning, because it's a little bit quieter and there's not so many emails kind of bombing around. Look ahead to 2025. What does it hold, and what would you like it to hold? And I think sometimes we always feel a little bit reactive, or a little bit, like a victim of circumstance. Oh, well, there's all these external factors at play. But actually, what would you like the year to hold? What are your wishes? And is there any kind of way that you can put those into practice? So Brett said, as a sole trader, I do weekly reviews to check on my progress, asking myself what worked, what didn't work, and what can I do better next week. And that's amazing practice, Brett. And I'm sure that lots of people would love to do that and probably don't have your discipline, because I think that's a really, really disciplined way to do it. And as I say, I think, you know, we are guilty in terms of kind of ploughing into the next load of work without doing that that type of reflection. So well done, Brett. Brett, can I ask, are there any sort of techniques that you use to do that, or is it literally just, do you just use lists? I'll wait for Brett to answer in the chat, and I'll carry on. But anyway, yes, we talked about what would you like the coming year to hold, and I think it's really important that you have some type of things that you feel that you might be working towards or are in control of. So planning and reflection, this is an important activity, so treat it as such. And I think people sometimes think this is a bit of a jolly, or oh, it's a bit of time off, or it's, you know, it's not, okay. And I'll just point you to sort of the final point on this slide, which is this might be the most important 2 hours of your work year. Okay, so this might be zoning in on yourself and deciding what you want to do, and what you want this year to hold is actually a really important thing to do. So you need to give yourself time, and I would say at least 2 hours. So it might be something that you might want to do this afternoon when it's a bit quieter. I would also say try and take yourself away from the office environment if you find that particularly distracting, or you're working from home. And if you're working from home, try and keep kids and pets and all that kind of stuff out the way, because working from home can provide its own distractions, as I'm sure we all know. You know, perhaps this is something to do in a closed room environment. Make sure the emails are turned off, and don't involve other people who aren't involved in what you're doing. Okay, if you want to involve other people in the planning process, that's absolutely fine. But, you know, make sure that there's not other people coming in with other distractions. Yeah, get prepared and don't let anyone or anything disrupt you. You might want to put an office on if there isn't already one on. And also be prepared to kind of say no if people are coming to you. This might be something that you do either, to say, from home is a good place, or perhaps you might want to do an away day. And a lot of people do this type of planning at away days. But for personal planning, you might just want to go to a cafe. You know, you might just think, right, okay, I'm going to get out of the house. I'm going to get into a new environment. And sometimes having a new environment can really kind of stimulate new ideas, a fresh approach to something as well. So Brett's come back now, so I can say he said he journals daily and follow up on my task list and see how well I did. As a self-published author, I also add accountability by updating graphs on my website so people can see my current book status. And I also send these updates via weekly email to my readers. That's amazing, Brett, and also a fantastic way of keeping track on your writing. One of the things I'm doing at the moment, I'm doing my doctorate, so I'm constantly writing my thesis, and it's huge. You know, you very rarely write something that's so massive, and I've always been quite organized in terms of, like, I have lists and I have goals, etc. But doing this enormous piece of work and being able to break it down and have these, I do have sort of every 3 months, I have a deadline that I have to hit from my supervisors. But it's huge and it's really difficult. So kudos to you as an author, you know, for keeping yourself accountable to sort of word counts, etc. I think that's an amazing thing to do. And Brett's also said, I find it's the best way to do it. My memory isn't great, so to be able to journal gives me a chance to update my readers. And you also did a full update about what happened in 2024. Yeah, so no, that's really useful to be able to do that, and well done you. So how do you start then? Okay, so you've got yourself in position, you've got all your distractions away, you've got your 2 hours blocked out. So what are you going to do? So as someone who's, got a marketing background and has been, a board director of Annika, and I've been sort of at associate director level of other companies as well. I think for me, one of the most important things about this is, well, what am I going to base all my, my observations on? So I always try and gather some data on myself, my career, where I am at the moment. It can feel a bit weird, that sort of navel gazing and introspection. We're not sort of used to doing it, I think. But trying to gather data on yourself, I think, is really important. So think about, what do you have? So, start with your CV, basic things like qualifications, experience, your key skills. What achievements have you got? Have you got any awards? Have you got any, sales statistics? Things like that. What have you got that you can say has some kind of value? Also, what networks have you got? So networks and networking also has a value. The size of your LinkedIn, follower network, for example, will have a value to you. So will networks of things like, your client base, your customers, and also people who are wider stakeholders in the business. So things like suppliers, banks, people who provide finance to you, etc. Think about all of that you've got, things that you personally are bringing to the table in your organization or business. And then you can try and do a couple of techniques. So this is the one that I found really, really interesting. Is, and particularly we're talking to people here who are mainly mid-career or established career, which was map your career and find out, when was I most content? When was I happiest? What type of job was giving me the most? And it's really easy to do. You've literally got kind of, your number of jobs across the bottom, and out of 10, how happy you were, how content you were at that job on the side. And you can literally do this on, kind of a piece of A4 paper, or you can do it on all that flip chart paper that just stands in the corner of the boardroom and no one does anything with it. You can use that. And think about each job. So, people tend to have like, okay, there was my first job that I went into and I was really excited. And then perhaps I learned quite a bit about what I wanted to do and what I didn't want to do. And then I moved into another job. I always find that there's a mistake. There's normally a career mistake somewhere along the way, which will inevitably result in a dip in terms of, okay, I changed to a job and I thought it was going to be better, and actually it was worse and I really didn't like it. And then I moved again and I found something better. And then you can sort of map to where you are now. I think this is really helpful because it helps to put your career in perspective and think about the journey that you've been on in order to get where you are today. I also think you can look at each job in a more logical and kind of less emotional way. I find sometimes when you've done a job, you've lived it, you've been passionate about it, and I think there's lots of emotions when you move on, kind of positive and negative. And I think being able to look back in sort of a more dispassionate way, you can say, well, actually, I really like that job. Why did I like that job? Why was I happy there? Okay, what was it about the job and the things that I got to do that made that job better than this job? A lot of the times it's things like people, but I think if you can separate that and make sure that it's about you and the things that you're doing within that job, I think this is a really great way of thinking about, okay, what do I now want to build into my own job? And if I'm also looking to change, what sort of skills do I want to use going forward as well? So what are the things I ought to be looking for? So interrogate the data. So it's just talking about this. So try not to think too hard about the mark you give each job out of 10. So just think, generally about, there'll be an instinctive reaction when you're doing that mapping exercise. So why did you give each job the mark that you did? So what factors influence the mark? And as I said, it could be about the skills that you used, the environment that was provided, the culture of the company, etc. Think about the jobs you were most content with. What made you feel this way and what did you enjoy? Okay, and then start to make a note of those things, because they're the things that you kind of want to take forward. Then do the opposite, the jobs you were least content with. What made you feel this way and what did you not enjoy? Okay, again, make a note of those, because they're the things that potentially you might want to exclude when you'll start looking at things like job descriptions. What could you exclude in your current role to make you more content? Okay, and then record your findings. So you're starting to sort of build up now, a little bit of the data on yourself and what you've done. You could also think about your personal brand. So Brett, I noticed, has also commented on social media. And he was saying that social media was sucking all of my time, and it can do. It's a real rabbit hole. And unless social media is like really, you are a social media executive, it can be a thief of time, I think. So you have to be sort of quite disciplined about it. But I think you considering your personal brand, I think as a contemporary person in the workplace, I think is essential, is necessary. I remember at my review that I had, some of the feedback I had was that I need to consider my academic persona. Literally my career kind of, my personal brand. And I think that's something that we all need to do. I think you can treat yourself the same as any kind of marketing project, and think about, okay, who am I? What do I want to project to the marketplace? But also, I think it really helps you remember that you are unique and special, and that you've got expertise and qualities that only you possess, and how you can sort of market those to the business or service. So think about that, and I think it really helps you, I guess, realize what you've got going for you, because sometimes, like I say, we're so caught up in this, the constant churn of work that you don't think about what is brilliant about you. Okay. So you can research your personal brand, and I've done this in a couple of different ways, and I've done it as part of kind of, refreshing my LinkedIn profile, but I think you can also do it as part of this process as well. So I think you can conduct like a situational analysis. What do people think about you personally and professionally? What are your standout qualities and talents? We've already talked about things like qualification, skills, experience, and sector knowledge. But are there things that you would like to promote to employers, potential employers, or customers? It can be difficult analysing yourself, so let's try and get some of this data that's available to you. So things like reports. So if you're a student, or at school, you might have reports, or if you're at work, you may have things like appraisals as well. I also did a little survey of friends and colleagues. So I did a survey on forms, and I just sent it out to people who I work with quite closely to see what sort of came back. If you are brave, you could use this as content for social media. I'm not that brave. I was like, oh, I don't know what's going to come back. But it was really nice actually to do this kind of just a little bit of an exercise and see what I got back from people as well. So, you can do this on forms, like a mixture of MCQs and open questions. I kept it really brief, and I also put things like frequently used terms from my latest appraisals as MCQ options. And I included questions on things like my personal qualities, my top professional skills. I wanted to know what I was underrated for. I wanted to know what people wanted to see more of, and things that I could improve as well. And then I left a free space for anything else, because I think sometimes as well, when you're looking at yourself, it, like I say, it can be really difficult to analyze it. So it's getting somebody else's opinion and get what they think can be really, really important. So how do we use the results then? So what are you best known for? So, or as, and this hopefully will give you some kind of skills to prioritize things that are perhaps, you're established for, but perhaps you might be either underrating yourself, or perhaps other people might be underrating you for. How do you go about promoting those skills? Think about your personal style. Are you formal, informal? Are you more corporate, more creative? How do you want to present that going forward? Also think about your sector and how people are presented, and obviously that differs. If you're in creative, you can be a bit more out there, whereas if you're in banking or law, for example, things tend to be a little bit more structured. So my learnings that came back from my little quiz was, I'm best known as a communicator, which is unsurprising given my background, but equally perceived as approachable, which I think that's a really nice thing, and something that I might not have been able to flag up myself. Key qualities were surprising, so I got things like fabulous and glamorous as mine, and that was really lovely to hear. But I did get also things like organised and efficient, which was really great to hear as well. Underrated included lack of confidence, which I felt was a surprise, because I consider myself to be quite a confident person. I have to stand up in front of hundreds of students all the time and present. So I found that surprising. People wanting to hear more from me. They felt that I wasn't speaking up enough, but they did consider that I had a great work ethic. I got lots of compliments about the sort of persona that I had, and I was perceived as happy, which is great. And freestyle comments included things like knowledgeable, passionate, efficient, and balanced. So I think this, it starts to give you a picture, and starts to give you, more of that data in terms of things that you might want to play on for the future, but also anything you might want to improve. Okay, and I'm conscious of time because we're nearly like 40 minutes through. So we're finally at techniques. So hopefully now you should have done all your prep, and you should have kind of, some lovely data on yourself, and thinking about, okay, right, I think I know, the bits that I want to improve. I think I know, some elements of myself that I want to have more of in the coming year, and some things that perhaps I want to have less of. So then how do I look at that data? So we've got some established frameworks here, and I'm only going to run through a couple, because I'm conscious of time, but also it's also dependent on what you've got access to. Now, some of you are business owners, so you might want to try and get some free trials, etc. So Kelly's asked, could you please share a copy of the forms questionnaire you used? Yes, I can. I will do that afterwards, Kelly. Brett's also said, Clifton Strengths is good for learning more about key strengths and weaknesses. Yes, and I'm going to go through some strengths work in a moment. Yes, so you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Use these established frameworks to help you analyse the information that you've got. You may have access to a paid framework via work. So, for example, at DMU, we've got the Career Service has access to Capfinity's strengths model, which is what I'm qualified in. But you may have, like, I don't know, Myers-Briggs, or you might have, there's like Brett's talked about Clifton Strengths. There's a multitude of these kind of analytical tools. And normally, if you work for a big company, then HR or recruitment will have access to one of those and that if you're within the company, you can probably use. Also, I know probably quite a lot of local people will be on this. Is there anyone here who's a De Montfort University graduate? And it doesn't matter when you graduated, because we don't publicise this enough, but if you are a DMU graduate at all, you can go back and access the careers service at DMU. You get free careers advice for life as a DMU graduate. So, if anyone watching is a DMU graduate from many, many years ago, you can still go back and access the careers service. And I've provided at the end of this presentation a slide which has got like useful links on it, and that's one of them. So if anyone is a graduate, you can go back and do that. Use whichever framework you feel most comfortable with, and also lots of frameworks. If you're a small business owner and you don't have access to one of these tools, you get a free trial with a lot of these, so you can go on and you can have a free trial and you just have to put your data in. You know how it works. And then this is a great opportunity then to use the data that you've collected on yourself within the frameworks to start to analyze your strengths and your personality type, which hopefully then should lead on to some of your goals and your actionable insights. So the one that I use is the Catfinity Strengths Model. And this has basically got 4 areas where your strengths are categorized, and basically you do a quiz and then it gives you your results in terms of these 4 areas. And the 4 areas are realized strengths. This is this green one at the top. So these are things that you are good at and that you know you're good at. Okay, then if you go slightly to the right there, you can see unrealized strengths. So these are the things that you're good at, but you probably don't quite realize that you're good at. So you can see this is my strengths profile here. Time optimizer, we talked about, me being organized and efficient. So I'd already had that feedback, and that's the way I kind of operate on a day-to-day basis. It's no surprise to me that that comes out as a thing that I'm good at and that I know I'm good at. Self-belief as an unrealized strength, it was something that I was like, oh, that's a surprise. I didn't realize that potentially might have been a strength. And then below that, you've got things that you are what we call a learned strength. So something, a learned behavior. So something that you may not be naturally gifted at, but over the years in your job, you've probably had to do this one thing over and over again. So it means that you are very good at it, whether you like it or not. So for me, that was work ethic. So it's ingrained in me to work very hard because that's what I've been doing for a very long time. And then finally, you've got your weaknesses. So these are things that you're not very good at. And also, you probably know you're not very good at it. So with me, it was resilience. I think sometimes it's I succeed most of the time. And then the rare time that I don't succeed in something, that bounce back sometimes is quite difficult for me. So here's a worked example. And again, this is mine. So you can see that there's a number of realized strengths and you will be able to see that. So in terms of, what those characteristics are, unrealized strengths, learned behaviors, and weaknesses. And then you'll be able to analyze what those are and think about, okay, how can I start to build some of these unrealized strengths and realized strengths into work going forward? And perhaps these things that are sucking on energy, which are your learned behaviors and your weaknesses, are there ways that I can start to get rid of some of these out of my workload? Other ones you can use. So there's the Myers-Briggs personality indicator. So this is all about analyzing your personality type, and it sort of gives it's 16 personalities types at the end, and it's about how you make decisions essentially. So are you someone who's more of a feeling person? Are you someone who's a bit more rational? And then it comes up with, you take a quiz and it will give you a personality type, which you can then read up more information on. There is a different sort of type of that called 16 personalities, which is a little bit simpler. And again, there is a free resource to take these quizzes, and I've included those at the end. But this is the sort of thing that I think once you've got that data, you can take the quiz, you can look at these sort of frameworks, and you can apply these established frameworks to the information that you've got. And I'm conscious of time as well, that we're sort of we're cracking through it. So how do we create then actionable insights from all the lovely data that we have got? So at this point, you should have lots of fascinating information about yourself, and I think it is fascinating. You will go through that and you'll be like, oh my god, I didn't realize that. No, and it just spending that time on yourself, I think really. I think it's important that you have that reflection. So you will be able to see who you are, what you like and what you don't like. So it's all very interesting, but how do you come up with next steps from this? So the goal now is to produce a roadmap with a timeline so that you can plan the next steps in your career and achieve your goals from this. So one of the things that I'd like to do at this point is to create your actionable insights, is to know where you're heading. So, and use the results of your analysis to create a vision board. So a way of expressing what you want to achieve, do more or do less of. So there are loads of free templates on the internet via Canva, etc. And again, I've put a link to some of them on the last slide of this presentation. So what you can do then is think about, okay, this year, so on your vision board, what are the things that I found out about myself? What do I want to do more of? What do I want to do less of? Okay, where do I want to go? And start to sort of actually put some of the key highlights from all this information that you found onto your vision board. For example, has your analysis shown that you're more contented when you're doing creative work, and that fits with, possibly having a more creative personality type? Then add that to your vision board, because that's something that then you would want to build on. So, use this as kind of like a brainstorming session to sort of cherry pick all the sort of best bits from the information that you've received. Then once you've got your vision board, you use that to create a list of actions. So for example, we've already talked about creative work, but you're thinking about, okay, I'm more content when I do creative work, and that fits with my personality type. But I think I need perhaps to upskill in an area, so things like Photoshop or Premiere Pro, okay? And then that's okay. If I need to do that, I will need to do some training, but perhaps I also might need to fund that training. So how do I get the budget to do that? Do I need to go, to HR? Is there a personal development budget that I need to access for that? Or is that something that I need to put budget aside for? You start to then, you'll start working down from the big concepts, and then you're starting to turn them into little actionable insights. You can then start to create a timetable, which you can then spread your actions across the year, and you give yourself a deadline for each action. Try not to have too many, so 4 to 5 I think is ideal. And then what you do is you print out the vision board and the roadmap and have them on your notice board or your desk wall, so you can hold yourself accountable. I mean, you can have them on your PC, etc. But I actually find physical things in real life, and if you've got them there, you keep them front and center all of the time. So here's an example. So as I said, your career map told you you're happiest in a more creative role. Your personality profile lists creativity as a key or unrealized strength. How can you make your current role more creative? Is there a business need that you could fulfill? For example, producing video content is one that, particularly small businesses, I think, struggle with. You would require training in video editing software. To do this, you would require budget sign-off. You can then create a time and a costed action plan off the back of that. So, this is about those contexts, those wider concepts and those strengths, and then turning them into a plan. And they can really work. So in 2023, I wanted to apply for a promotion. And then in academia, it's really weird. It's not like being in a private company at all, where you kind of do really well at your job, or you sell more or stuff like that. There's, I'm not kidding, a 27-page form that you have to complete in order to apply for the next stage in academia. So and so I knew I needed to complete some things. There were some tick boxes that I hadn't actually done. So one was increase my academic profile. Another was gain a further academic qualification, and also I needed to apply for the next level of the Higher Education Authority, which was senior fellowship, and I'm currently just a fellow. So there was 3 things I knew I needed to do. And then against those particular goals, I put a tactic. So I knew I needed to talk to the communications team and let them know I was available for media interviews to increase that academic profile within the region. I had to apply for a further academic qualification. So as I mentioned, I made the decision at that point to apply for my doctorate. I completed a 2,500 word proposal within a week, actually, because I made the decision. I approached the relevant person. They were like, "Oh yeah, the deadline's already gone, but I'll give you an extra week." And I did do it, and I secured the funding for that as well. And also, I needed to complete the training, find a mentor, and complete the application for my senior fellowship as well. So I put a deadline against all of these things. As a result, I secured interviews on BBC Radio Leicester and East Midlands Today via the comms team. I'm now in my 2nd year of my fully funded doctorate, and I'm halfway through my senior fellowship application. I narrowly missed out on my promotion first time round, but came away with a roadmap of my own actions, which enables me to complete and hopefully get promoted at the next sort of tranche. So kind of these are the sorts of things that you can, I think, really kind of narrow it down to. Yes, it's about spending that time on yourself, being able to identify key concepts, skills and strengths, and things that you want to take forward, being able to analyze that data and then create a timed roadmap off the back of it. And yes, it does really work. I am the proof of the pudding on that. So
Excellent.
9:53. I've just got through it in time.
Well done, Caroline. Good timing. Yeah, that was really, really interesting. I guess in a way, I've sort of subconsciously done something similar with my own career in the last couple of years. Because although my official job title is CEO of Annika, I find the bit that I like the best would give me a title of Chief Technical Officer instead. And so I've sort of pivoted towards doing that job more. But also I've been doing a lot of studying on AI and things at the weekends, and now going to do a formal qualification over the next 6 months, a much more in-depth thing. I had never done a plan like you've done before, but I knew you used to do this for your personal life and things like money and stuff, and what you wanted to achieve on a personal basis. So, and that always stood out when we discussed that was a really good strategy.
It is, and just as I know we haven't got very long, but personal life is really important in that, and do include that in your personal planning as well, because one of the things, I'm quite happy to share this. When I switched from being part of Annika and doing private sector consultancy, and I went into education instead, was I had a family member who was really, really poorly. And that was a huge kind of factor in swapping careers, because I knew I was going to have to spend more time with that person. So kind of always factor your personal life and what you want to do personally within, I think, that plan, and it really keeps you on track. And I think you need to have Yeah, I tend to have multiple ones of these. I have a career one, I have a personal one, I have a finance one, I have 3, but that's just me being super organized.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was interesting reading your strength profile because I was aware of all of those things. It did make me smile when they said you were very fabulous and glamorous. It always reminds me of a photograph you've got up in your living room when you worked in media, when you were actually a TV journalist, and it always reminds me of that. I have a more serious question, actually, of how to apply this to a business. We did see right at the beginning that about a third of the people were business owners. And although this approach seems to be quite career orientated, how could you pivot this around, apart from doing obviously a business plan, which I think is different? How could you use this as a self-employed or a business owner and make that leap between how your career should change or your business should change? I was very interested to hear that.
Yeah, I think, as I said, it's a smorgasbord of techniques, and I think you can choose the ones that are more relevant to business planning. But I think particularly if you're a sole trader like Brett, your business is you, essentially, isn't it? Your business is your career. So I think these things are really interconnected, and it's instead of maybe going for a promotion or a pay rise, it's about, okay, so how do I alter what I'm doing within my business to accentuate the strengths that I have, and are there things that I need to do to stop this energy being sucked away? Perhaps can I outsource some of the financial stuff if I find that really difficult? Are there things that I can do to make my life easier, and also to give myself a little bit more control? So
the other thing I do think is worth doing is personality type, the frameworks that you talked about. I mean, I did Myers-Briggs something like 30 years ago, and I came out as a PENT. I know that's not the right order, but that's how I remember it. The person who was actually delivering the course was also the same, and she said it was really unusual. It was a very, very small number of people, and very unusual for females, because it was like a consultancy type person, entrepreneurial type, and normally within a work environment you don't get many people like that. But it was sometimes doing these things is a very good way of looking at yourself from an external perspective, and I've found them always very insightful, because I sort of, I'm sure I'm on the neurodiversity divergent spectrum as well, and I've always found myself to be quite different to other people, and didn't really understand why. And it's quite a lonely position being a founder of a business, and I know a lot of the people that have got their own businesses probably relate to what I'm saying, because you do have to have certain personality traits to have the resilience and the tenacity to set up your own business. But I found that some of these frameworks are incredibly useful, because it made me understand what motivated myself and why I was, in some respects, behaved the way that I did. Strengths and weakness, of course. But I think that what you presented today is incredibly powerful, and I know that we've got a very mixed audience, and the love that you've been getting has been brilliant. So thank you for pulling up the resources, but I'm also going to put up a request for a review, because I think that would be really great if people could leave a Caroline a review on reviews.io, which is something that we do ask people to do, particularly when somebody like Caroline has given up her some time to do this for you. So thank you very much. Is there any questions that I've missed in the chat which perhaps we need to answer?
I feel like Caroline was on the chat as well as going through the slides at the same time. It was quite interactive.
Yeah, that was good. That was good.
Yeah.
Well, look, we've reached 10 o'clock. Thank you so much for doing that for us. It would be lovely for you to do another one later in the year, or maybe on another subject. But yeah, we've got lots of great love and affection coming in through the chat. But have a great weekend, everybody. And if there's no more questions, we'll leave it there, and we'll get the video out to you in a couple of hours' time. So thanks very much, Caroline.
Yeah.
I'll give you a call later on. It'll probably be over the weekend, actually.
Before we go, I just wanted to say that we have the webinar next week with Brad, and the topic is going to be SEO in 2025. It's already live. Everyone can go ahead to register again. So yeah, looking forward to seeing everyone back here again. And thank you so much, Caroline, for a wonderful session.
Thank you, guys. See you all.
Happy New Year.
Bye.